Welcome back to the Awesome Agents podcast. I'm Alex, and today we're talking about a deal that I think a lot of people in the AI world didn't see coming.
Yeah, Cohere and Aleph Alpha, a transatlantic merger, $20 billion combined valuation. There's a lot to unpack here.
Let's start with the basics. Who are these companies, and why does this deal make sense on paper?
So Cohere is a Toronto-based enterprise AI company. They make the command models, embedding tools, re-ranking models. Their big thing is serving regulated businesses that need reliability and control.
Right, not the flashy consumer stuff, more like the boring enterprise work that actually makes money.
Exactly. And they had $240 million in annual recurring revenue as of 2025, which is real.
And Aleph Alpha?
Heidelberg-based, founded the same year as Cohere 2019, built the Feria AI platform, which is basically a sovereign AI operating system for European governments and defense agencies.
So governments that don't want their data going to American or Chinese servers.
That's the whole thesis. German military, federal ministries, regional governments, Aleph Alpha had those relationships. The problem is they barely had any revenue to show for it.
That's a pretty rough position. Great access, not much cash.
Which is why this deal actually works for both sides. Cohere gets the European institutional footprint it couldn't build from Toronto in a reasonable time frame. Aleph Alpha shareholders get an exit before the company burned through the rest of its runway.
So who came out ahead here?
Cohere shareholders hold about 90% of the combined entity. Aleph Alpha shareholders get around 10%, which works out to about $2 billion in paper value.
Wait, so if Aleph Alpha's last valuation was around 500 million, this is actually a win for them?
On paper, yes. 4 times the valuation they had before, in a deal that also solves their revenue problem. The math works for investors who needed a way out.
What about the people who built the company? The article pointed out the Aleph Alpha co-CEOs weren't even at the announcement press conference.
That detail is interesting. When the people who ran a company don't show up to announce a deal about that company, it usually tells you something about how the conversations went.
Fair point. So who's the big financial anchor here?
Schwarz Group. They own Lidl and Kaufland. They were already an investor in Aleph Alpha, and now they're leading Cohere Series E with a €500 million commitment.
A German supermarket conglomerate is the lead investor in what might become Europe's flagship AI company. I love this.
I mean, it actually makes perfect sense. Schwarz runs one of the largest retail operations in Europe. They have massive data infrastructure needs and strong incentives to keep that data on European soil.
Okay, so let's talk about the thing I'm most skeptical about. 2 companies with completely different model stacks trying to act like one company. How hard is that?
Very hard. Aleph Alpha's Feria AI is built on their own architecture, not Cohere's command family. Merging those 2 systems, 2 go-to-market teams, 2 sets of government relationships across at minimum 3 countries.
Wait, what? That's not a product integration. That's basically building a new company while running the old one.
Right, and the European public sector moves slowly. Procurement cycles are long, politically dependent. The German government was at the Berlin press conference. That's not a signed contract.
So there's a big gap between the sovereign AI market as a thesis and the sovereign AI market as actual revenue.
McKinsey estimated sovereign AI as a $600 billion segment of the broader $1 trillion AI market. But estimates and signed contracts are very different things.
What about the US labs? OpenAI, Anthropic, Google. Are they watching this and panicking?
Probably not panicking, but this deal does formalize something they've been slow to address. All 3 have talked about European data residency. None of them has the kind of institutional AI relationships Aleph Alpha brought to this deal.
And then there's the geopolitical layer.
DeepSeek. The article mentions their V4 release right around the same time. Chinese labs can now compete at frontier quality at a fraction of the cost.
So European governments are looking at American providers they don't fully trust, and Chinese providers they definitely don't trust. And Cohere is saying, we're the third option.
That's the bet. Aidan Gomez, Cohere's CEO, co-authored the Attention is All You Need paper in 2017. He has serious technical credibility. The question is whether he can also navigate German procurement bureaucracy and EU regulatory review while building a combined product.
That's a different skill set entirely.
Very much so. And don't forget, this deal still needs to close. Aleph Alpha shareholder approval plus regulatory review in Germany, possibly at the EU level given the defense contracts involved.
So we won't know for a while if this actually works.
The press conference was the easy part. The next 18 months of contract signings and ARR growth will show whether the sovereign AI thesis was real or just well-funded optimism.
That's a great way to put it. Well-funded optimism versus real revenue. We'll be watching.
And it's worth noting, even if Cohere executes well, they're still not in the same capital tier as a Google-Anthropic partnership. This deal gets them to a credible position. It doesn't make them the winner.
Important caveat. Okay, wrapping up. If this closes and integrates cleanly, we may be looking at the company that actually makes sovereign AI a real commercial category, not just a policy talking point.
That's the upside, and it's a genuine one.
Thanks for breaking it down, Maya. For everyone listening, we'll link the full article in the show notes. Back next time with more AI news. Talk soon.